Welcome back to Uncharted, your sidekick for life. In this episode, we sit down with JP Newman, CEO of Thrive FP, commercial real estate investor and host of Investing on Purpose. But this conversation goes way beyond real estate. JP shares his journey from selling calculators at age 8 to working in Hollywood and eventually building a $2 billion real estate business rooted in purpose. His path wasn't linear. There were spiritual awakenings, landmark seminars, mentorship moments, and even a surreal stint in Hollywood that taught him exactly what kind of life he didn't want. From driving a studio executive to therapy appointments to pitching Veggie Tales at Sony, JP's journey is full of wild stories. In this episode, we dive into the power of mentorship, what it means to build a values-driven business, and JP's signature framework, 4-dimensional wealth. He also shares a powerful story about helping his son flip a house and how mentorship paid forward came full circle in a surprising way. If you're wondering how to blend purpose with profit, or you're trying to define what wealth really means to you, this episode will hit home. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Founding Up's Uncharted, your sidekick for life. Today is a special day, always a special day when we get together. It's always so cool to talk to new people. We've got 2 new people in the house. One will be hopefully a regular, Gloria Park, who specializes in finance. You want to just talk a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I do work in traditional wealth management, but more importantly, I'm helping business owners really find clarity and carry out their vision for what they truly want.
Amazing.
Awesome. Well, we wanted to invite, so part of the work that we do behind the scenes is we go interview Gen Z. And at our last visit at A&M, which is about a month ago, had 250 kids. We surveyed them, and top of the list of top things that they wanted the most help with was finance. And so we thought, well, we'll start asking some finance questions and bring an expert in the house and just have regular tidbits of information when it comes to wealth management. So that's what we're looking forward to doing. And our other guest today is JP Newman. JP, will you introduce yourself? And
yes, great to be here. Happy Friday. I'm JP Newman. I'm CEO of Thrive FP, and we do commercial real estate. We do mostly multifamily apartments, workforce housing. We call it. Workforce are serving the people, residents at $25,000 to like $70,000 a year. We do that throughout really the South and the Southwest. We've done about 20,000 units, or about $2 billion worth of transactions. Mm-hmm. When I moved to Austin 20 years ago, I never dreamed it would come to be this size. But the cool thing through the journey is, how do you make sure you create purpose in business, especially when you're talking about investments? So our company is called Thrive FP, and the FP is for purpose, for profit. And we can go into what that really looks like and what that means. But as the company grew, it was really fun to how do we make sure that all the stakeholders are thriving and not just your stockholders or your investors. And that's been a fun experiment.
I love that you have that mentality. And that is something that I found as I was founding Austin Magazine and interviewing entrepreneurs all over town. The one thing that is just astonishing and I'm grateful for in Austin is this mentality of kind of how do you help, rising tides lift all boats? How do you help everyone? And so people ask me a lot of times, what does Austin mean to you? And in one word, it's community. It's like, how do you help? It's not just for me and not for them. It's everybody can thrive. And so I love that you've got that in your business name. Really cool. So our format, as you know, we being our guest mentor today, we already dove into what you do today, but how did mentorship impact you? And I know you've got some fun stories that we're going to get into, but let's just talk about you. I like to always take people back to when they were 15, 16 years old, what they wanted to become. So what did you want to become when you were at that point?
I joke and say I was supposed to be a nice Jewish lawyer.
Okay.
I think it was all set up that's what I was just going to do because everyone told me that would be fine. You could make money. And so it was quite a journey to really wake up to my own spiritual path and realize I was not destined to be a lawyer. Thank God for me.
And where did you grow up again?
Los Angeles.
That's right. I thought I was going to say California.
Yeah. And I think that I was always very motivated. And I was selling credit card calculators at 8 years old. I've always been very I was always on the hustle. And I think part of it was for me, I learned, and I really credit my father. You know, I guess maybe like part of the rich dad, poor dad. He literally had me in a briefcase that like I was always making money. So like even at a young age, I had my own money.
That's
and
cool.
I've raised my kids that way. So it's like this idea that like at 8 years old that I made $500. I remember it was like helping women like put their groceries in their car and they would get tips. And there was like these things that got me to the point. And I made $500 by literally taking my bicycle and helping people put groceries. But that money was so meaningful.
Sure. You earned it.
I earned it. It was very empowering for an 8-year-old to know that you can do that. And I just kept doing new things like that because I found it really interesting. And when they said you can't do something because you're too young, I'd always find a way to do it. And so it was like, you know, it was kind of a dream. Obviously, you know, it sounds like everyone thinks it's about the cars. When you're 15, it is. It's about the women in the cars and all the trappings of wealth. And it takes a long time of a long journey to realize that that is a very empty goal if it's not filled with other meaning and purposes behind it.
So at some point, you went from supposed to be a lawyer, but you veered to what? Let's just continue that story. Like, did you go to, you know, what did that 1920? What did that look like? What decisions did you make to kind of like go other directions?
Well, you're gonna laugh. I'll tell you a little bit of what I was on. I'll tell you how I got in the other direction. I started actually a spiritual practice at 19 by accident because I was in a fraternity. I was doing the UCLA thing.
Sure.
Everything was about sex, drugs, and rock and roll back then. And there was something in me that said, that doesn't feel like the whole story. And so I got really guided. I started meditating on my fraternity roof. I knew I was in trouble because everyone was drunk downstairs and I'm meditating. So I knew like, okay, this is weird.
I'm different.
I'm in trouble. And I think the path of just slowing down a little bit. And also I did some really intense coursework. There's something called Landmark Form and ALA here in Austin. And I actually at 18 did my first course.
Wow.
And it woke me up to like possibilities of life. Like kind of woke me up out of the shell of who I thought I was supposed to be, of who my parents, my friends, like
what
that
introduced
shell.
you to that? Like, were you just like randomly looking for it?
No, my parents were kind of hippies from LA. They were definitely like your 60s, 70s, you know, hippies. Mm-hmm. And we were fighting so much, my sister and I, that they forced us into a family weekend. We hated it. Like they're like, you're going to go to this family weekend. We're going to learn to get along. And that was my first introduction, actually.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, I had no idea what I was going to, you know, take to it. But I think partly from just having the curiosity and the hunger inside to grow and learn about some of these spiritual things made me more open to questioning things. Like I never really questioned things. And it was just a great way to do that. And then to be honest, my 20s, I laugh and say I am a late bloomer in everything. I was far from an overnight success. I probably had...
You're an overnight success 20 years in the making.
Correct.
Right.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so I tried a lot of things and it wasn't clicking. And the funny thing was I was really disciplined. I was like listening to my Tony Robbins and my Sony Walkman every day. And I was writing my goals on the wall and I was just like doing the things, right? Like I was really disciplined. And it really wasn't translating to what you'd call the trappings of success, not just financially. Like it just wasn't really working. And it was incredibly frustrating.
So there was some kind of disconnect.
Well, I found out that like kind of what it was. At the time, yeah.
Okay. I'll let you get there.
No, that's fine. There's just a part of it was also just figuring out what you really want. And it hurts to have the courage to actually say, I actually don't think I want that.
Right.
I went to work for a famous studio head. He was the head of Paramount Studios. And I was driving him around to a psychologist all day. Because he thought he had a brain tumor. That was kind of fun. And he was yelling at Julia Roberts on the phone. And I'm driving his jet. Like I did all kinds of crazy. He was throwing food at me and like, just like, you know,
I
like.
I don't think this is what I want.
Yeah. So like, that sounds really sexy, but I don't think I want that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the rule was you can never speak to him when you're driving. When he's going to his therapist, you can never speak to him. But so one day he gets out. He was looking for a brain tumor again. You knew all his films he did. He did really famous films. And he says, I said, don't speak to him. So I said to him, when he got back in the car, I'm like, do you have a brain tumor? He goes, no. I said, have you thought about meditation? And he fired me.
Wow.
Big Hollywood. I believe my Hollywood career. Yeah. But actually, in my late 20s, I did find something that I fell in love with, and that was actually children's entertainment. Because I realized after that crazy thing, I didn't want to be around Hollywood agents that were throwing telephones and all that. So I thought, but I really like, which is why I have a podcast, I really like entertainment. And I thought, okay, children's will be safe. How bad can animation be, right? How bad? So I got very lucky. I'll kind of keep it to a shorter part of the story, but through a little bit of luck and some work, I managed to, Sony Pictures decided that they wanted to compete with Disney, but they didn't really know how.
Sure.
And the truth was, my boss at the time, who later became the studio head of Sony, didn't really care about children's stuff. They had their own version called Screen Gems, which was like Miramax. So they had their own like quality, and like they just wanted to go to like the south of France and hang out with the stars. So they kind of like left this 27-year-old and said, just go build us a children's entertainment thing, and pretty much left me alone.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that was super fun. And they didn't really know what they wanted. I said, do you have any guidance for me, what you want? No.
Just do it.
Just do it. And it was actually based at that time out of the home entertainment, the DVD division, which made all the money for the studios.
Sure.
So I was in this really unique situation because they kind of just wanted to leave me alone. And even the studio mostly left me alone because they knew I'd make the money. As long as it could be in Walmart and on an end cap and have some kind of thing and I can get it on TV. So I had all like, not that I didn't have any wheels on me, but I was the youngest vice president of family entertainment out of a division of 450 people. And relatively left alone because they were just not interested mostly. Right. So they had little guardrails on me, and that was super fun. And I really got to take all that entrepreneurial hustling from like younger and actually like get my MBA in corporations.
This is where Tony Robbins came in and later in life.
It did. Although what I was told, I was there for 5.5 years and they kept promoting me. And my boss said, you are the worst employee. He's like, you are not politically correct. You do not check the boxes. You piss that person. Like, you don't know how to play the corporate game. Right. You just get shit done. And the problem is you just get shit done. So we can't fire you because you keep producing for us.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But you don't do it the right way.
Right.
And I think that was, for better or worse, that was definitely like entrepreneurial instincts. I'm not saying they were right.
Right.
But I'll just give you one example.
Yeah.
And this got kind of funny. Do you guys remember Veggie Tales?
Of course I do.
Right? Okay. Right.
Veggie Tales.
So I brought them into the studio and I said, like, early on, the first time, like, the Veggie Tales is going to be huge. And I'm like, we should just buy the entire Veggie Tales. Let's just buy it. And they're like, I don't know. It's too Christian. I'm like, you guys are missing the point. Veggie Tales connects with people. And this was like before it was a thing.
Right.
So I brought them to the studio. So imagine this. I'm bringing the studio. I've got my boss, the head of marketing, like all the things. And we're in like the commissary and there's famous movie stars all around. And they came in with checkered pants, a golf shirt, and a big Larry the tomato, Larry the cucumber, and Bob the tomato. And they're just bright. So everyone's in Giorgio Armani suits. And they're out there. And I'm like, guys, we need to buy this. And they're like, we just don't get it. And I said, I'll make you a deal. And I said this to my boss. I will give up my salary. You can pay me minimum wage, just what you have to pay me. If this doesn't work, then just pay me minimum wage for the year. And if it does work, you're going to double my salary because it's going to work. And they didn't do it. But you know what's funny? They would tell that story about how like wild and recluse, like they're like, JP's the only guy who would go there and like, come in my office, bully me, the president, bully me, and just say, I'll put my salary on the line for this. Nice. And they didn't do it, and they always regretted it. And it was really, really fun for me.
And now
there's a bunch of stories like that. What's that?
Now Veggie Tales is on Netflix.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I'm the Jewish guy who loves Christmas specials and the Christian. I love Christian children's stories. I did a lot of them, quite frankly.
That's so cool.
Yeah, did a bunch of them. Did Christmas specials for CBS and all kinds of fun stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, the Christmas King over here.
Really cool.
Yeah, pretty fun.
I love that story. So how's in this thread of what, I mean, obviously Hollywood, then you went into real estate.
Yeah.
In this thread, how has mentorship kind of impacted you, like both from having mentors kind of show you different things or you being mentored others? I
would say that, in that part, I was really still being mentored quite a bit. And so in that phase, I'd really want to give my father a lot of credit. Like that 8-year-old hustle. Yeah. There was also another thing that came with his mentorship. It wasn't only showing me how, but when you tell a kid he's special and he can do it, I just believed it.
Right.
Like when people tell you that, like, you can do this, you've got this. Mm-hmm. I was too young to question it. And I think that confidence is probably why I could go, for better or worse.
Right.
Maybe sometimes I'm over like too much, just ask my wife. Yeah. But that confidence took me really far. It also gave me the courage to really try a lot of things, to not become a lawyer. When all my friends were making good money and they were becoming professionals, I was broke and single. Mm-hmm. Like my story sucked. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that at the time I was depressed, I was anxious, I was very self-aware of it. It was a really hard time, but something in me did not want to settle. And I really credit that to that confidence I got at a young age, even though it was hard, messy, didn't look good. but I kept fighting. And when I'd get punched down, I'd like, let's do the next thing. And I started 5 or 6 entrepreneurs. I had an internet website. I won't go into the details, but like I kept starting things and I'd get shut down. And I listened to my Tony Robbins and didn't get it, but it just didn't work. But there was some kind of resilience that I think that early mentorship really created. And I think that when I'm a mentor now to a lot of people, I really see the importance of not false confidence, but actually like look at a person's strength. Like don't just say attaboy, say attaboy, but say why. And like let them like do it with integrity and authenticity. Otherwise, you don't want someone who's not good at something just to give them a false
Don't
thing.
fluff them, yeah.
And then actually, at Sony, I have to say that my boss, he was tough on me. He was busy. He was rude sometimes in a Hollywood way. Like he was just very to the point, like very New York to the point. Like JP, you drive me fucking crazy. The F-bomb. You drive me crazy, but he had so much respect for me. He also trusted me and he let me do things and he kept promoting me. Like in spite of it, he would tell me like things, but he taught me a lot actually, quite frankly. I think one of the reasons why I'm successful today at Thrive is I learned so much because I did slow down and I did start to learn to check the dots. And I did learn like, yes, I know that's easier just to talk to you, but I just got to make sure that like you're in it. Like I actually on the way here, which is one of the reasons why I was late, there was a phone call, right? It was that very phone call where this person didn't need to know, but I knew it would make their weekend better if I just told them on a Friday what had happened so they didn't have to find out on Monday from someone else. And I would say that lesson of teamwork, leadership, communication, responsibility, that's ultimately what I really am at the end of the day as a coach to my team now. But he taught me that because he was my coach.
Right.
And if your team doesn't know the mission, doesn't know what the game is all rowing in the wrong direction, that it's ultimately your responsibility. And I think that Sony, a lot of those tough lessons at Sony really taught me about that. But I think it really refined me. I think it took a diamond in a rough and gave me some much better skills in leadership,
Structure,
quite frankly. Yeah.
Well, I also love that you bring in the landmark stuff that you did early on at 19 because it helped you question. Like you started to learn to question things because I think questioning is such a big part of life, of growth.
Yeah.
Right. Those that I always think about life, if you just kind of go to the status quo, go the professional route and just do the thing, it's because everybody's telling you to do this thing. You're not questioning, you just go do it. And I think where mentorship helps is like, why are you doing it that way? Or why don't you do it this way?
Right.
What about this opportunity? What about this? And just that freedom of questioning is so important.
It's a courageous to really question is courage.
Sure. You're exactly right about Landmark, opening your eyes to question things, because I remember doing Landmark. I must have been 20.
So same thing.
Yeah. And I was exposed to people that I never thought I would ever have a conversation with because of growing up probably in a little more sheltered environment. But somebody in my group was a paranoid schizophrenic man. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm connecting to this person with severe mental disorders, physical disorders, but I was, and we still remain in touch to this day. And that's 14 years later?
Yeah.
And so it opened my eyes to everybody has something to offer you, has something to teach you, rather than just immediately cutting somebody off because I don't relate to a paranoid schizophrenic. Like it opens your eyes. I don't know.
It does. It really does.
Very cool. I want to jump now into some of the things that we talked about before the show. Because finance is such a big thing for Gen Z. Like one thing that I've got a finance background as well before I got so many things that you've done in the career, and finance was a big part of it. I always had this curiosity about finance when I was really young. And so I was wondering what that CNBC channel, what is all those numbers? And so it just kind of, that's what led me down that path. And to find out through the 25 years that done that, it's one of the things that we, as America, I don't think we do, or I don't know, any country does it well, is that teaching early on of finance.
Oh, absolutely. Financial literacy is missing.
And what's so heartbreaking about it, and part of the things that we're doing at Family Up is to bring all that to a much younger age, is that there are options where you can put debt on someone that's 18 without understanding the consequences. And
Absolutely.
So that college debt, $100,000, $200,000, and all of a sudden now their whole life changes for the next 20 or 30 years. And I think education is so important. So we, as I mentioned earlier in the show, we went and did this, asked 250 students, and the top thing they wanted to learn was finance. So you were mentioning earlier about this 4 pillars of finance.
Yeah.
4 pillars of finance. Why don't we just jump into that?
Sure,
and talk
absolutely.
About,
I've been doing this now for quite a time, and I joke and say, really, my job is I'm a financial psychologist. Gloria, you probably are too.
Therapist,
right?
Financial therapist.
I can't tell how many clients that I, and I always say in life, there's 2 of the most gentle things are your heart and your money. And nobody wants to be broke in their heart, or they don't want to lose their money. And so there's so much fear. And we usually get in once they've had a loss, and they're like, oh my God, what did I not know? And so I think through the years of just really counseling a lot of people, I've realized that, especially with a podcast, usually I'm the first person I say, what are your financial goals? And they usually respond with a number. I want to be worth $2 million. And then the second question I ask is, well, why? And that's where it just drops. Like, there's not a good why. Well, da-da-da-da-da. And so what I realize is that we haven't created great frameworks for people on what money is and what money isn't. Like, what is wealth? There's currency, there's cash,
right?
Lots of cash. I can tell you, when my business started becoming successful, I became the most anxious, depressed person because I had no framework around success. When I got my first BMW, I literally had a panic attack. I just did not know what to do with the money. And I thought, how are people going to see me? Is my marriage going to survive? Like, I literally tripped out because no one ever gave me a framework for success. And so I think from my own experience, I've definitely been putting these frameworks together. And the framework of 4-dimensional wealth is just simply to realize that there's that money is great. Like, money is awesome. As long as you know what the money is and what the money isn't. So in my 4-dimensional pillars, there's money, it's your investments. It's what Gloria, like what we talk about. But then there's also your purpose, like your why. Like, what's the why that makes you cry? Like, really, what are you here to do on this planet? And how is your money attached to that? Now, it could be anything. I want to be the best community leader in my church. I want to be the best father. Like, it doesn't have to be CEO of a 1,000-person company. It's great if you want to, but like, know what you actually want, not what social media is telling you, but what do you actually want? And that's really hard. I call it the Starbucks exercise, which I'll get into. It's my first exercise of becoming more audacious, to start asking the questions.
Right.
To start asking the questions of what do you really want? Because most people live here.
Right.
And we're told all day long what we should want.
That's so
Right.
important.
Yes.
That was such an important thing, and it is this new world. I say new, in the last 10 years, social media, everything else. It is that we don't do as much deep thinking because we're so sidetracked with the light thinking, which is social media.
And we think that, as women, we're supposed to be these pretty thin railies, perfectly women. So a guy's going to get us, and a guy thinks, if you don't really think about it, I'm supposed to be this crazy provider so that everyone loves me, likes me, blah, 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 blah. And I'm the baller. But reality, that's not true for 99.999% of the population. So how do you actually find wealth, which is going to be, I say you wake up peacefully and you go to sleep. So you wake up happy and you go to sleep peacefully. And during the day, you have your own presence, like you're in present time. So the second pillar is your basically your relationships in your communities. Who are your friends? Who's your family? What's your relationship with these people?
The first pillar was the why, or what was the
purpose?
Purpose. Okay.
Purpose. So purpose. Then there's like relationships, your community, and then there's your time wealth. How are you spending your time every day? And I totally get working hard. And by the way, if you're working hard as a vision to your why, keep working. You're young, like go do it. But know why you're doing it. Ultimately, what are you doing it for? Otherwise, like, what's the purpose of doing that? And then, of course, ultimately, the wrapper of everything is health. Because if you have health, if you don't have health, you've got nothing. And what I found through my own life and my own experience is that when you really take the time to integrate those pillars and you put them in the right thing, what you actually can create with, especially purpose really drives everything. All of a sudden, when you have victories, they become much larger, profound victories because you know why you did it. Otherwise, like most people, now your first question is like, why are you making money? Because you throw a dollar number out. And then when do you stop making money? Or do I have enough money? And I can tell you that game, as we all know for most people, is it enough? How much time do you spend talking to people who are asking you, do I have enough money? Or should I make more money?
Hours. We have clients that have been with us for like 15 years and they're still asking, do I have enough money? It's like,
you make $1 million. That's not enough. Is $2 million enough? I mean, I'm worth $4 million. Is that enough? And you play the game. And the problem with that game is you're always in scarcity and you're in fear. And so what I really want to wake up to your audience is like, money is not going to get you there without these other pillars.
Right.
It's not. You're never going to feel wealthy, even if you have the money. And again, I thank you. I mean, like, we see it all the time. Really wealthy people who don't feel, really rich people who don't feel wealthy.
Right.
And they've never asked that question, or they've never gone through these exercises.
Yeah.
Same thing as kind of brings me to a conversation I was having yesterday with a serial entrepreneur, and it was like their 8th or 9th startup. And you could tell that the reason that they built the startup is they were solving problems as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I have a solution. I'm going to start a business and I'm going to solve it. But then there's no fulfillment.
Right.
Right. Because the purpose wasn't there. It was just like,
Right.
this purpose was, I see a business need, I see a business way to make money. And that was the reason. And I feel that a lot of young entrepreneurs might get into that slippery slope where it's like, I have an idea that'll make money. And that's the purpose. Yeah. And that's not a real purpose at the end of the day. It's not it's a purpose. It just doesn't satisfy what you're talking about.
Well, I also find that, like, I found in life, I learned this from Sony, like, if someone's pitching a hummingbird idea, then there's all of a sudden there's 4 hummingbird projects. And so usually whatever you think your great idea is, there's 5 people pitching the same idea. Right. And so the person that you're generally going to go for is the person who's had the heart. Like, you can feel the difference between a spreadsheet of someone, an idea versus someone who's it's like their story.
Yeah.
I always say bet on the jockey, but it's not just their story, because sometimes I bet on a story, but bet on the wrong jockey. It's really the story and the jockey. Like, can the jockey execute? Are they far enough along? But when it's their story, I promise you, like, just that statistically, their chances of succeeding is going to be much higher than the person who's kind of like synthetically fabricated this idea. Not that it can't work, because some people are great, but I just, after,
that's so true.
Right? It's just different.
So
I totally get it, because, and back to the tenacity that you had at 19 and just trying, because when you have that combination, you just talked about purpose and jockey and all of it, that person's going to continue. They're going to, 24 hours a day, going to be thinking about how to make this passion, this purpose come true.
Right.
And so much different than a person that doesn't have that is, that's not going to work. I'm going to move on to the next thing. Yeah. And so,
like, I'll tell you, like, right now, guys, I'll just share this with you. It's really, and I haven't, every time you succeed, you go to the next thing. So for me right now, part of where I'm at in my life, like, great run in commercial real estate, done 20,000 units. I was kind of debating, quite frankly, whether I want to do more, if I'm just kind of done and maybe just do something else. Mm-hmm. I'm going to probably go more towards a chairmanship soon and have my, like, a staff. But one of the things that's still, like, curious for me in my mind is this idea of love thy neighbor as thyself. That question. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. I don't think I know that kind of love. I love my mom, I love my wife. I love a lot of my friends. I'm a pretty loving human being. Right. I don't know that I really know much about, like, when you say loving a neighbor, not a neighbor that looks like me, right. Not a neighbor that's at my living and doing my life. How about someone that maybe we live a very different life, right? But can I see them, like, as Jesus said, right. Or just look at, like, can you look at that person in the eye and have that kind of love for them? And that love comes from recognition. So what's Gary, like, my question right now is, can I see my resident with not just respect, but as my client, and ultimately as someone that I'm here to love and take care of? So how many landlords are thinking, is that resident someone that not only do I recognize, respect, and see, but love? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm grateful for, because you've made an incredible life for me and my family. Like, I come to you in gratitude. That $1,000 rent that you paid and all these people paid, thank you. I owe you that respect and that reverence. And imagine, and so I want you to hear this, but I'm still a for-profit. Right. It's like, I'm not an angel.
Right.
I fix things up. I could raise rent. I lower expenses. I still have a fiduciary to my investors. Right. So, like, let's be real here. These are businesses. Right. But I think when you take that kind of recognition, that's my client too. Mm-hmm. That's my client. That's my client. Right. And how cool would it be? Imagine if you just took that, like, and you really mean it. Like, first of all, that's interesting for me spiritually. That's an interesting challenge for me. Yep. Can I love my neighbor as thyself? And then what I'm finding out economically is that you get higher resident retention, because when you're focusing and people feel seen, and guess what they do? They stay longer in your building. They refer friends. They refer their aunts and uncles and say, I don't know, these people seem pretty cool. They got wind chimes up, and they have these free telemedicine programs for us, and they're giving us free telemedicine. I don't know why. Right. My kid needs to be tutored. They have digital tutoring services. They just provide it. They don't charge me for that. Like, they're not looking from they're not trying to, like, zap. It doesn't feel like they're trying to zap every nickel out of me. It seems like they actually, like, want me here.
Provide a lot of value.
Yeah. Pretty simple, right? Yeah. still for profit. That's why Thrive is FP. Like, I'm a passionate capitalist. And why not be a passionate capitalist with that recognition at the same time?
Yep.
But it all comes down to what we said before. Like, it comes down, and this is where the why is so important. We tell stories all the time. At Sony, I told stories. Veggie Tales tells. I'm making the story up. There's no thing. I'm making the story up. And the story is around that same curious kid who has a new question.
Right. Exactly. I love that.
Isn't that like
it's an ongoing new question, and that's the growth of life.
There are always new questions. When I'm finished with this, there'll be another question.
Yeah.
Right. And then that keeps things interesting and fresh, and it's giving me new energy, different energy. I don't want to do it the same anymore. I kind of want to do it differently now. But that really is my guide. That's my guiding purpose for on the business side, on the real estate side. That's my guiding purpose right now.
Love that. I want to talk about this story that you shared with us earlier regarding your son and coming to you and looking for a mentor. Can you talk about the flipping of the house and how that went down, and kind of how that 360 came back around? Because this reminds me of what you just said is loving your neighbor and seeing your neighbor, and that always comes back one way or another. And this is what this story to me sounds like.
I'm back to and the story is definitely this. And it's funny, like, again, when you start telling stories, the universe, if you pay attention, will actually usually back your story. So in this case, my son was leaving for college. He's a freshman now. And I said, hey, you got into college. You got 6 months left. What do you want to do before you go to college? And he's like, I want to learn how to be a glass blower. I want to go to a couple of UT games. And I want to flip a house. Will you teach me how to flip a house? I like real estate. Will you teach me? I know you flipped a house. Like, let's flip a house.
Yeah.
Like, cool. Okay. I have no idea because I don't flip houses. Right. You know, I think he thinks
that's not your area of real estate.
I don't flip houses. I run large apartment projects. Right. And I'm like, okay, son. So I didn't want to disappoint him. And
you're like,
I'm like, okay, how am I going to go?
How to
Yeah, seriously. Like, how am I going to do this? And it was really funny because 6 weeks earlier, I was at a residential real estate thing for an economic forecast, a local group here called 12 Rivers. They're a local real estate group in town. And as I was walking out the door, this guy caught my eye and we just talked for a minute. And it's funny thing is, I'm so used to being more like the mentor these days. I'm the servant leader to others. He's a younger guy. Right. His name is Zach Cohen. And there was something about him. I asked him a question. I don't know why I did. And the question was personal, so I'm gonna keep it off the camera. But I felt like I was supposed to ask him this question. And it started this thing where he just moved to Austin, and I invited him to my house for a dinner, a Shabbat dinner, a Friday night dinner on the Sabbath. And I think he was like, what is this guy doing? And I do this sometimes. It's an energy thing. So I had no agenda for the guy, just something in me. And then 6 weeks later, my son asked this question. Turns out this guy flips homes. That's a specialty in Austin. So I call him one day, and this was just not that long ago. And I said, hey, my son wants to do this. Would you consider, I know this is a weird thing to ask, would you consider mentoring my son?
Right.
And he says, yeah. And they met, and I immediately knew they were thick as thieves. They were just like, bah, 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 bah. And he comes and he was tough. And it was so, I'm in the happy days. Like, there's going to be no BS here. Like, if you work with me, this is going to be a spreadsheet. We're going to be disciplined. We're going to pass on a lot of things. I expect you to work. Like, this is not going to be like La La Land for your dad. This is going to be like, we're either doing this or we're not doing this. Right. And I really appreciated, because I couldn't be that to my son. It just
you were not the slave driver.
And he really did it with tough love and care, though. But it was tough love and care. And if you ever listen to my podcast, my son's reflection was, I had no idea. I never knew. In fact, my son said to me, it was the funniest thing. This was it took him a long time to find a house. They found a house. Ultimately, they found a house in South Austin. And it was like Amazing Race. He had to get it sold before he left for college. And the house was a mess. The house was great bones, but it needed everything. Mm-hmm. They had a huge budget. They had I think it was a $190,000 fix-up budget. So they had decorators and general contractors, but the mentor provided the shell so he wouldn't get screwed. And now my son's dealing with contractors and decorators, and he can't go over, and they're watching budgets, and he's really stressed out. He goes, Dad, I had no idea about adults. He's like, all my life, I've only had to do one thing, go to school. And now I've got to manage contracts. I've got to budget and go to school. How do you adults do this? And he goes, I thought adults were reliable, but he goes, all these contractors, they're late and they have overages. He goes, you adults are all messed up. You're not reliable. And I said, welcome, son, to business. There you go. Wow. So that was pretty funny.
Great.
And he did sell the house. And I'll tell you what's interesting. during the course of the last 6 months, you guys probably know in Austin, prices have gone down, not up. Mm-hmm. And he executed perfectly as far as the execution, except both of them, including his mentor, did not expect the overages. There were overages at the end of the day. The buyer at the end, in order to pay the price for the house, wanted some extra things. And they blew through $21,000 of overages, which was just about all of his profit. So that profit on the first one was blown in overages.
Right.
And he was really upset. And it's been a hard thing. This just closed 4 weeks ago. So this is a pretty, and I looked at him, I said, you know what, that's business all the time. I said, what did you learn from the experience? He goes, Dad, I didn't know how to take ownership for my financials. And I left it even to the mentor. And even he, who's smart, like I should have been more present in the dollars. I kind of didn't I didn't get it. He goes, it's on me and I'll never, I will own in any future endeavors. I will own the responsibility. Finances are so important. Budgets are so important.
Isn't that wonderful?
And I said, that's the lesson.
Yeah.
He did make $700, I think. And he
said to me, he said, a lifelong experience.
And a lifelong experience. And so my knucklehead son, because he's really actually good at saving. He's a really smart kid. He says, what if I just take that 700 and do bottle service for my friends in college? I'm like, that's how you want to spend your $700 on bottle service? Come on.
You're like, I made my $500.
I think he was so frustrated because he worked so hard.
Sure.
He's just like, he had all these plans.
Throw it up in the air and go.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I don't know what he did, but that's what he told me.
Well, and then that story continues because it came back around.
Yeah, so this was the crazy part. So, and by the way, in order for my son not to lose money, that mentor who turned out to be an agent, he bought the house and sold the house for him, reduced his commission significantly. He worked his butt off with my son. He was there at 10 o'clock at night watering. He gave this everything for 6 months. He gave it 100%. And in the end, the mentor wound up not making any money because he didn't want my son to lose money.
Oh, wow.
Because my son did put a down payment and he would have lost his down payment.
Wow.
And that was a lot of money to my son, as you can imagine. It was like his life savings.
Yeah.
And so we didn't ask him to. He's just like, we're a team. Immediately he goes, we're a team. This is how we play as a team. That's just how life goes. So can you imagine a mentor he meets this kid, doesn't know the kid, doesn't know me that well, and literally just gives it all to him.
Says so much about a person.
It's like you gain more giving versus receiving sometimes.
So here's the crazy part of the story, though. I'm like, you don't have to do that. He's like, no, I have to. It's just the way it is. But there was nothing offered. But ironically, he was on his next house flip, about 3 weeks later. And he was supposed to sell it to this guy. He was going to make a nice profit. It was a lot on the east side. He had a nice profit. And it had to close Friday, though. Otherwise, the deal was off. And the builder was playing games with him, was monkeying with him on the price. He was trying to he figured this kid's weak. He's still young. He doesn't know I can just tool with him. And that happened to me on my first real estate transaction. Somebody tooled with my first transaction in Austin. This guy was tooling with me and there was a huge profit in it. And I had a mentor at the time who said to me, I said, we're about to lose this. This guy's screwing with me. It's 3 o'clock. And if I don't close by 5, I lose this deal. And he said, my mentor's name was Robert. And he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like to close this thing. I think there's $1 million of profit here if I can close it. I got someone else I can sell it to. It's a very parallel story, by the way. It's exactly what happened. Zach said to me, I got another guy who will buy it on Monday. I just got to get through Friday. It's exactly what happened to me.
Oh, wow.
You know what my mentor did? He wired me on an email over $3 million to close that transaction in cash.
Wow.
And I said, what are you doing? You don't know me? What if I screw this up? You can't just wire me $3 million. That's insane. And he goes, JP, I've watched you for 5 years. I've been your mentor. You've got this. You are responsible and you've got this. And I trust you. Do you know what that meant to me? What that meant to me, that a mentor.
That responsibility
oh my God.
Just take you to another level.
So the guy came in, by the way. So the guy who was messing with me, again, these are almost parallel stories. That's why I tell you the story. The guy comes in who was messing with me. And I said, don't bother. I've got this closed already with my guy, and I'm going to make $1 million on Monday. And I don't need you anymore. And the guy freaked out. He absolutely lost his marbles that he couldn't mess with me. And then they said, JP, but if you do this, you're the new kid in town from Austin. You came from California, you moved to Austin. Everyone in real estate will know you as the guy not to screw with. Because my mentor, and at the end of the day, I actually softened it up. I actually wound up selling to the guy who was messing with me because I had the power,
Right.
and I got my price, and I gave half the profit. I didn't make $1 million. I made a lot less. Because I was told, hey, if you come on that strong in Austin, Texas, you might also get a bad reputation.
Right.
Like don't be that guy. Be merciful, but be strong.
Right.
So I did something that was reasonable, and I gave half that money to the mentor.
Wow.
And said thank you. And so here's the parallel to that story. It changed my career. Someone said that not only they said they trust me, they backed me.
Right.
So Zach was having the same problem, but he had someone else to sell it to on Monday, but he had to get through Friday. And it was a smaller transaction. So I did the same thing for him. And I think he was blown away. I said, if this guy messes, just the money's wired. I got you. I trust you. I know you know what you're doing. This happened to me.
Yeah.
If you say it's going to close Monday, it's going to close Monday.
Right.
And it did. It closed Monday with the other person.
Wow.
And he said, JP, you have no idea. And I said, I do have an idea because I had a mentor. I know the feeling of empowerment when someone's messing with you and you could somebody backs you, how good that is. So here's the fun part of the story. I made a little money off the transaction, but that wasn't why I did it.
Right.
But he knows I love cars and I've been wanting to geek out with cars. So he delivered to me 2 weeks ago a Mazda Miata 1995 with little racing stripes on it.
Yeah.
And he's taking me to the track. He bought me a helmet. He's like, I'm going to teach you to be a great racer. And he's taking this car from me as a gift. Because he's like, you have no idea. You changed my career. You've given me this lesson. We're going to go on this old beat up Mazda Miata, and I'm going to teach you to be a great driver. That's my gift back. So it just keeps going and going and going. I'm not asking. We're not trying to be transactional.
Right.
We're not trying to do anything. We're both just living in I knew what I could do for him to mentor him. He it just keeps going. And we use these skills.
Yeah.
And he looks up to me still because I'm got 25 years on him in commercial real estate. So he's looking to me for a lot of real estate advice. And why wouldn't I want to give that to him? It's just this, and I get to geek out and drive a car fast. Everybody wins, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hope that wasn't too long of a story.
I
what
love
a
it.
great story.
It is a
Yeah.
great story.
Yeah.
I think that's it for tonight.
Great.
Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you so
Thank
much,
everybody else
JP.
for being
Can
on
you
the
tell us the name of your podcast? Wait, is it still Investing on Purpose?
It is.
Okay.
Investing on Purpose. It's on
Investing
all the...
with Purpose.
Well, Investing with Purpose is another show. And
There's another one. Okay.
It's actually a pretty big show. Mine's Investing on Purpose.
Got it.
And my tagline for my company is Investing with Purpose. So if you look at all the major, Spotify and all, Apple and all that stuff, it's there. And if you ever want to know more about, I'm trying to think here. There's a couple great videos. My current episode for your audience is about the wealth pyramid. Gloria, you would love this episode, in fact, because it's so much about what you do. And I'm not a financial planner. But I feel like it's taking what I've learned from my financial planners and adding some of this 4-dimensional wealth. So this week is with Sam Prentice on the wealth pyramid. And it is a great starter for whether you're at $1 and trying to figure out how to start or a little further along. It's kind of the beginning of a roadmap of where you can start thinking about and actually applying a framework to 4-dimensional wealth.
Love that. Yeah. I started looking at that up this morning, your podcast, and there's a few that caught my eye.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to check it out.
Cool. Thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
JP.
Appreciate it.
Big thanks to JP Newman for showing us what it means to lead with both heart and strategy. From his childhood entrepreneurism to conscious capitalism, his story is a reminder that success is about more than just the numbers. It's about who you become along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It helps others find the show. If you want to share your thoughts or be featured as a Gen Z contributor, check out the show notes to learn how to get involved. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep exploring the uncharted.